The house stood at the edge of the town, quiet and cold, like it had forgotten how to feel warm. The paint had faded from the walls. The grass outside had grown too tall. The windows were dusty, and the doors made a long creaking sound every time they opened. Inside, it smelled of old wood, closed air, and memories too heavy to speak. Mr. Hale lived there alone. He had not always been like this. Years ago, he had a wife. Her laughter once filled the halls like sunlight through an open window. But after she passed, the house changed Dan, so did he. He stopped fixing things, stopped opening the curtains, stopped talking much at all. His eyes lost their light. He barely left his house now, only to buy bread, coffee, and sometimes tools he never used. One day, the dust became too much. Not because he cared, but because it made him cough at night. Also, he pinned a note at the grocery store. Need someone to clean house? No questions. Quiet work, cash pay. Note. He didn't expect much. Maybe someone older, with stiff hands and gossip. In their voice. But the next morning a girl showed up, small, too thin. She wore old shoes and a coat too big for her body. Her hair was messy, her face was pale. But her eyes were what caught him. They didn't sparkle or shine, they hid something. Deep, heavy, and old. She didn't introduce herself. Jai said, "I came to clean." He nodded. "All right, don't go upstairs. Clean what you can." She didn't ask about him or the house. She just stepped inside like she already knew what silence sounded like. She placed her bag in the corner and began. Mr. Hale sat on the porch. He could hear her inside light footsteps, soft cloth brushing old wood, the soft tap of glass being cleaned. There was something almost careful about the way she moved. Like she didn't want to disturb the air. Like she was used to being in places where people yelled if you made too much noise. Curious, he peeked through the window. She had opened one of the curtains just one end. The sunlight was spilling across the floor for the first time in years. Dust danced in the light. She looked at it like she hadn't seen sunlight in a long time, like she missed it. She found a photograph on the table. It was of his wife, smiling with wildflowers in her hands. The girl didn't smile or ask questions. She just wiped the frame and gently placed it back, right in the center of the table, like it belonged there. Mr. Hale felt something strange then, small shift in his chest. Not pain, not happiness, something in between, like a tight string. Had loosened just a little. The girl moved through the rooms without rushing. She wiped, folded, swept. She didn't hum, didn't talk to herself, just quiet work, like he had asked. And yet, the house already felt different. She didn't enter the upstairs hallway. He hadn't told her why. But somehow, she understood. That space was untouched since the funeral. His wife's things were still there. Her books, her favorite chair, the smell of her still hid in the blankets. Maybe the girl could feel that too. In the evening, she stepped outside and sat on the edge of the porch. A few steps away from him, she didn't ask to sit. She didn't say anything. She just sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap, eyes watching the sunset like it held secrets. He glanced at her. She looked young, but her shoulders carried something old. Pain, maybe, or fear, or both. "Cold out," he said finally. She nodded a little. He handed her a blanket. She took it softly, said thank you, and wrapped it around her shoulders. Her voice was low, not shy, just careful. He didn't ask anything else. But his mind was full of questions. Where had she come from? Why did she flinch when the wind slammed the back door? Why did she never smile, even when the sun touched her face? But he didn't ask. Not yet. And as the sun slipped behind the trees, two strangers sat on an old porch, quiet, broken, and not quite alone. And maybe, just maybe, something had begun to change. The next morning was quiet, just like the one before. The sky was pale gray, and soft light touched the old porch. Mr. Hale opened the door and found her already sweeping the front steps. She wore the same coat, her sleeves too long for her hands. Her hair was tied back now, a little neater than before. He nodded at her. She nodded back. No words, just understanding. Inside, the house was changing. Not fast, but enough to notice. The floors were cleaner, the air didn't smell so closed. A blanket had been folded and placed on the old armchair. The picture frames were dusted, placed in quiet, respectful rows like little memories made straight. Mr. Hale watched her more closely that day. He sat in the kitchen as she wiped the cupboards. Her movements were soft but sure. She seemed to know which parts needed more care, which corners held old sadness. Sometimes she would pause and stare at something for a moment, a chipped mug, a forgotten book, a broken clock, as if she was listening to what it had been through. He wanted to ask her something, anything, but the words stayed inside. He was afraid they might break the silence that was finally starting to feel kind, not heavy. Later, she found a wooden box under the hallway table. She opened it carefully and found old letters tied with a ribbon. She didn't read them, just brushed off the dust and placed them neatly back. Mr. Hale had forgotten those letters existed. They were from his wife. Her handwriting still made his chest tighten. The girl cleaned for hours. And then, once again, as the sun lowered, she came outside and sat on the steps. Not too close, not too far, just near enough. This time, Mr. Hale spoke first. "You always work so quietly." She looked at him, her eyes dark and deep. "I had to learn to be quiet. Some places don't like noise." His fingers tightened around the edge of his chair. He didn't push her to say more, but he wanted to. There was a story behind that voice, something with sharp edges, he noticed. The way she kept watching the trees. Every time the wind moved through the leaves, she flinched just a little, like she was expecting something to come from the woods, or someone. "You got a place to go after this?" he asked suddenly. She shook her head. "Not really. No family." She shrugged. "They're around somewhere." Mr. Hale's jaw tightened. He looked at her coat, how it didn't fit. Her shoes worn thin at the soles, the tired way she sat. She wasn't just poor. She was carrying something heavy, something most people couldn't see unless they knew how to look. "Did you eat today?" he asked. She shook her head again. "Not yet." He stood up and walked into the kitchen. For the first time in a long while, he pulled out 2 plates. He made something simple, eggs, toast, and hot tea. When he brought it outside, she looked surprised, like kindness was something she didn't know how to accept anymore. "Thank you," she whispered. They ate quietly. The food was warm. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of small thoughts, quiet questions, and growing trust. As the sky turned dark, the girl stood up. "I should go," she said. Mr. Hale felt something in his chest again. It's that same soft pull. Like something inside him was starting to wake up. "You can stay in the back room," he said without looking at her. "If you want." She froze. Her fingers clenched around the empty plate. "It's not much," he added, "but it's warm and safe." She looked at him for a long moment. Her eyes shimmered a little, but not with tears. With disbelief, like she didn't think anyone would ever say something kind to her again. "Okay," she said quietly. That night, for the first time in months, Mr. Hale didn't sit alone. He heard soft movement from the guest room. Nothing loud. Just the sound of someone existing, someone breathing in a house that had forgotten what company felt like. He lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. He didn't feel better, not yet. He felt less empty. And somewhere down the hall, a girl, who had been running from shadows, finally slept in a bed with clean sheets, in a room with a door that locked, and a man who didn't ask her too many questions. And that, for both of them, was the beginning of something new. From the story, he hired a girl just to clean, but she cleaned the grief from his heart. The third morning came with a quiet fog over the house. The girl was already awake. She stood in the kitchen making tea with her hands wrapped around the warm mug. Mr. Hale walked in, surprised to see her up so early. "You didn't sleep much?" he asked, his voice still rough from sleep. She shook her head. "The bed is soft." "I'm not used to that." There was no complaint in her voice, just honesty, like someone who had spent too many nights on floors. "Couches are places not meant for sleep." Mr. Hale nodded, not sure what to say. She moved through the kitchen, cleaning without needing to be told. She didn't touch his things, only wiped the counters, washed a few old plates, and opened the window just a little to let in the morning air. He noticed it again that way she worked, gentle, slow, like each motion had meaning, like she respected the silence, but not in a scared way anymore, in a thankful way. The sunlight came in through the small window, catching her face. She squinted but didn't pull the curtain back. Her eyes still looked tired, but not empty. Mr. Hale found himself watching her more often, not in a strange way, but in a wondering way. There was something about her that didn't make sense. She never smiled. She never asked for anything. She never left during the day, only walked around the house, cleaning, folding, sitting on the porch in the evening like it was part of a quiet routine she had been waiting for. That day, she found a cracked music box on a shelf in the living room. It was dusty, the kind of dust that only collects when something hasn't been touched in years. She picked it up with both hands like it was something sacred. Mr. Hale saw her turning the small key at the bottom. Soft, broken tune began to play a lullaby, slow and haunting. It stopped halfway through. The girl didn't look surprised. She just stared at it like the broken song still made sense to her. That was hers, Mr. Hale said from the hallway. The girl looked at him. She didn't ask who hers meant. She already knew. She used to play it before bed, he said. Said it helped her sleep. The girl nodded once, then placed the music box back. Later, she walked past the staircase. Her eyes stopped at the top. There was dust there too, thicker, deeper. That was the part of the house she had never touched. Mr. Hale noticed her glance. He stiffened. She looked at him. It's okay if you don't want it cleaned. I don't, he said too quickly. His voice was sharper than usual. The girl nodded and turned away. She didn't push. She never did. But Mr. Hale couldn't forget her glance at the stairs. That night he sat on the porch again. The girl joined him like always, a quiet shape in the soft dark. Fireflies blinked in the grass. The air smelled like the earth after a light rain. I haven't been up there in years, he said suddenly. She didn't look at him, just waited. It's like if I don't touch it, she's still there, still alive. Waiting, the girl breathed in. Not loud, just a soft, steady breath. I know what that feels like, she said, holding on to something that isn't coming back. He looked at her then, really looked. What happened to you? He asked gently. She didn't answer right away. Her fingers picked at the edge of her sleeve. Some people lose people. To death, she said slowly. Others lose them while they're still breathing. Mr. Hale understood more than her words. He saw it in the way she sat, always half ready to leave. In the way she never asked for more. Was it your family? She didn't speak, but the answer was in her eyes. They sat for a long time in the silence after that, before she went inside. She stopped at the door. Thank you for letting me stay, she said softly. He gave a slow nod. You've done more than clean this house. She didn't ask what he meant. She didn't need to. That night, Mr. Hale stood at the bottom of the stairs. He looked up at the hallway he had locked in his mind for so long. Then he turned and went to bed. And the girl, she slept lighter than most people, but for once she didn't wake with fear. Something inside both of them was shifting. Slowly, gently, like sunlight pushing through a curtain. Final part of he hired a girl just to clean, but she cleaned the grief from his heart weeks past. So the house no longer felt cold. The air smelled lighter. The rooms had color again, not from paint, but from light, from movement, from small changes only the heart could feel. Mr. Hale still didn't ask the girl many questions. He learned her name by accident, and she left a small notebook in the kitchen, and he saw it written inside the cover. The notebook had tiny sketches, quiet drawings of flowers, broken cups, old trees, and one sketch of his wife's photo. She had seen the pain in that picture. Somehow, she had drawn it. One morning, while Anna cleaned near the stairs, Mr. Hale stood at the bottom step. He hadn't gone up in over 2 years. Not since the day they carried his wife's body out. That hallway had become a place he couldn't face. But today, he looked up. Anna noticed and paused. She didn't speak. She didn't ask. She only stood still, like waiting for a decision that didn't need words. He climbed one step, then another. His legs felt heavy, his chest tight. At the top of the stairs, he reached the door to the room. His hand shook as he held the handle. He opened it slowly. Dust rose. The air inside was still, like time had stopped. Everything was where it had always been. Her scarf on the chair, a half-read book on the nightstand, a dried flower in a cup. He stepped inside. The room whispered with memories. He sat on the edge of the bed, breathing slow. Anna stood in the doorway but didn't enter. She just waited. "I never changed anything," Mr. Hale said. His voice cracked. "Couldn't do it." Anna nodded. "You don't have to. Not all at once." He looked at her. She looked back, calm, not judging, not pushing, just present. It made something deep in him loosen again. Grief didn't leave, but it didn't scream either. "You know," he said after a moment, "I never planned to let anyone in here. I thought if I kept it the same, she might come back." Anna didn't answer. Some truths didn't need replies. That night after dinner, they sat on the porch again. This time closer. The stars above were quiet. Anna was holding a warm mug in both hands, fingers wrapped around it like it was the only warmth she had ever known. Mr. Hale looked at her. "Why did you come here, really?" She didn't answer right away. Then, softly, she said, "I saw your note, and I needed to be somewhere people didn't talk too much. Running from something? Maybe." He waited. "I lived with my uncle," she said. "It wasn't a good place. So when he got angry, he hurt things, broke things. Me sometimes." Mr. Hale's chest tightened. "And your parents?" "Gone," she said simply. Silence stretched between them again. But it didn't feel awkward. It felt honest. He reached beside him, placed his old hand gently over hers. She flinched at first just a little. Then slowly, she relaxed.
"At you
"Can stay," he said. "Not just to clean. Stay here. This can be your home, if you want it." Anna didn't cry. But her breath caught in her throat. No one had said that word home to her in a long time. "Maybe never." "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you want me to?" "'Cause you saved something I thought was gone forever," Mr. Hale said. "I didn't even know I could feel again until you walked in with that old coat and quiet steps." She smiled then. Not big, just enough to light her face. Her first real smile since she came. And for the first time in years, Mr. Hale smiled too. Months later, the house looked nothing like before. Not perfect, but alive. The curtains were always open. The garden had new flowers. Soft radio played in the background. Anna painted a little. Mr. Hale even started fixing small things against squeaky doors, broken lamps, squealing taps. Grief didn't leave completely. It never does. Yet. But it learned to sit quietly in the corner, no longer taking all the space. And Anna? She had found more than a job. She found safety. She found kindness. She found someone who didn't yell, who listened, who gave her space to grow. Mr. Hale lost someone years ago, but he gained something unexpected: hope. It didn't wear his wife's smile. It wore a younger face, tired eyes, and healing hands. And in the quiet corners of the house that once forgot how to feel warm, something new had bloomed. Love. Not romantic. Not loud, but deep. Gentle, and finally, alive again.